Hey guys, Steven Martinez with The American Dream. I just want to say a huge thanks to all of our supporters and fans. It's because of you guys that we're able to grow our channel. Having said that, please don't forget to follow and subscribe so we can continue to grow. And I hope you guys enjoy the next episode. Hey guys, welcome back to The American Dream episode. I'm here with a very special guest, Jerome Malondado, husband, father, and business entrepreneur. Thanks for coming, bro.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, Stevie.
It's the power of social media is crazy, huh? I just reached out literally yesterday, now you're here.
I know, I was marketing for my event for like the last 5, 6, 7 days, and here we sit. We just got done with about 100 and just shy of 150 investors.
Beautiful, man. No, I saw your ads, and I was like, man, who's this guy? I said Houston, did a little stalking. I was like, man, I got to get this guy in the studio ASAP. But having said that, what's your story? People who don't know Jerome, just from start to finish.
Yeah, so it depends where you start, right?
Childhood. Take me through your childhood first.
Yeah, so as a kid, I grew up in a traditional Catholic Hispanic family. My parents both came from like lower end. My mom worked at Levi Strauss when I was in the factories when I was a little kid, and worked her way into nonprofits as a bookkeeper, and then actually running and becoming an executive in nonprofits. My dad was an accountant. He worked at a grocery store, just finished college when we were young kids, was an accountant for 32 years. And they just taught us the value of sweat equity and education. And so they put us in Catholic school when we were kids. I went through the whole Catholic school system. I was dyslexic, so I actually struggled through the Catholic school system, I guess a better way of saying it. And I hated it, man. I'll tell you, I hated school. I hated Catholic school. I hated everything about it because I always felt like I was that dumb kid in school that got pulled out in the middle of class to go, when they were going to go do something like art or something fun, to go to a chapter 1 reading program for kids that had reading disabilities, right? Yeah. And so that's where my life started. So my whole life I always felt like I was trying to prove something to people, including myself. And so when I got out of high school, I went to public high school because the Catholic high school didn't have a wrestling team, and I wrestled growing up. And so coming from an athletic background, I think that was the attributes to what have helped me tremendously in just life and in my professional career, also in education. And in high school, I realized I wasn't as dumb as I thought I was, because I actually was able to sustain myself in high school. But then I went to college, and I was just real ambitious, and I went after one of the hardest bachelor's degree, which at that time was pharmacy. And I struggled through it, but I got through it. And in the interim time, like in the summer, I landed up seeing, a few years into college, I saw a multi-level marketing company, and I got involved in sales. And that was the best sales training, was in multi-level marketing. I was in multi-level marketing for a little over 5 years. I struggled for about 2.5 years, and then I figured out the business about 2.5 years in and became one of the top 30 money earners in the entire company out of 300,000 distributors. And then we grew too fast. We were the fastest growing privately held company in American history in 1995. Wow. And by 97, the FTC had it with us, and we grew too fast and couldn't fix the problems. And so we got shut down. And then I landed up in this interim time of trying to figure out my entrepreneurial life, what I was going to do professionally for the rest of my career. And it was the first downturn in my professional life where I had finally, and then I lost everything. And so I learned a lot. As a kid, I was in my 20s still, and I was in my young 20s. And I learned that the way I spent money needed to be different. I was frivolous with money. The way I scaled business and the way I diversified needed to be different. And I went back to school to finish my last year of college. And in that time, I still was involved in multi-level marketing a little bit. I opened up a construction company, and then and we were just doing everything and anything to try to figure out what direction I was going to take in entrepreneurship, right, or in business, or if I was going to get a job. At that time, I was really at a place where I was like, okay, or do I get a job and go back to my roots? Was all this like a dream, right? And so within our first year in construction, we did a little over $1 million in business through the means of learning how to sell through multi-level marketing. So we crushed it. And so I made a few $100,000 that year. And then it scaled from there. We got into the single-family homes development space in 1999. I still have my construction company where we're still pouring concrete today. Had that business for over 25 plus years. We started developing single-family homes in 1999. That was the means that I actually became a millionaire 2 years later was through building homes. And so that's been our claim to fame. And then we got into retail value add, buying old buildings on owner financing. And I started building them ground up in 2002. And then the 2008 recession almost crushed us between our single family homes and our retail centers. Yeah. We got into the restaurant business. We've owned a lot of stuff. We've owned a lot of restaurants. I was the largest Subway franchisees in central New Mexico and southern Colorado for about 10 years. We've owned coffee shops and juice bars. We've owned dance schools. We've owned restaurants. We've owned a lot of stuff over the years. And so but what people really know is for our accolades in real estate development. We post-recession, I got into the multifamily value add sector, and then about 2016 we got into the ground up multifamily game, and so now we're building institutional assets in the multifamily game, 150, 200 plus unit developments, $50 million to $70 million developments. So it's been a long progress getting there, but that's kind of in a nutshell.
So when you mentioned multi-level marketing quite a bit.
Yeah.
What is that exactly? Are we talking like traditional marketing, digital? What is that?
No, it's multi-level marketing is direct sales, and it's like Amway. You ever heard of Amway?
I have not, no.
You don't know if you've heard of Amway? No. So multi-level marketing is like it's always been known. It's always had a bad reputation. It's like a pyramid scheme, right? It's a corporate hierarchy is all it is. But multi-level marketing is like there's companies like New Skin, Farminex, Melaleuca, Avon is a multi-level marketing company. Amway is the largest. There's a ton of them. I was in a company called Equinox International, not the gyms.
Yeah.
We sold water filters, and it's where you yourself open up your own independent distributorship with the utilization of products that the corporation holds, and you hire people you don't hire them, you get distributors underneath you. Those people sell and you take a percentage of whatever they sell, and then what the people below them sell. So it's a corporate hierarchy, but it's done through direct sales and the multi-level marketing that exists in insurance is very similar. Brokerages like real estate brokerages, so forth and so on.
So moving forward with, I guess, the career on how you're transitioning from there to where you are now, you mentioned there were some downfalls with the recession one, for example. How was that?
There's a ton. I got a bunch of good stories, man. The recession in 2008 was, because there was a recession when I started in, my business in 1998 as well. Most people only remember the ones that they lived through. This is my third downturn that we're in right now. 2008 was interesting. We were heavily involved in every aspect of real estate, construction, residential, commercial, and it was challenging. We owned a brokerage firm. We were building ground up retail. We owned a little over 1 million square feet of retail at that time, and I was building subdivisions at that time too. So we had an entire infrastructure of staff, employees, and so when it hit hard. We had the concrete company, and it was like crickets, bro. So when we did, man, I never realized how much I enjoyed the sound of power hammers and skill saws going on a job site until they're not there.
Yeah.
Bro, I would go on to job sites in full subdivisions like Kaufman and Broad subdivisions or D.R. Horton subdivisions where, you wake up in the morning, it's like tack, 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 all the sounds, right?
Yeah.
It was like crickets, man. You'd go into these subdivisions where houses were being built, the houses weren't being finished.
Wow.
The subdivisions were empty, and it was just quiet. It was just crickets, and it was wild. And I remember walking into like Home Depot one day, and because our phones weren't even ringing for like residential or commercial work with a concrete company. So anytime the phone, there was days I'd pick up the phone and be like, I'd tell the girls, and "Oh, the phones, like, are they working? Are they disconnected?" Like, not a call's come in today. And I said, there's no friggin' way. Because when you've been in business, at that time it had been 10 years, the phones, like we couldn't even keep up with them, right? But I'm talking, when you have a business that's doing strong 6 figures a month and it goes down to less than $10,000 in gross revenue in a month.
Wow.
We're talking like December of 2008 moving into January of 2009. Between December and February, December of 2008 and February of 2009 were the 3 craziest months of my life, because in regards to business, it was it was one of those. It was a 3-month period that felt like there was like this lapse time that lasted forever, and you were like in the twilight zone, because the phones didn't ring. It was like totally taboo from what you were doing in marketing, because like with your business here, you control it, right? Like you call the shots. You reach out to people if you're ambitiously reaching out to people building your business. But all of a sudden, you're 100% severed. Let's say that like the internet just was gone tomorrow, and it was all taken away from you, right? Okay, what do? Now you're vulnerable to the circumstance around it. What do? That's the situation that we were in 2008, because you couldn't just solicit business. Nobody was buying.
So how did you deal with that? I understand the business side, but from a mental perspective.
Bro, that's where faith comes in. That's where faith comes in. You know, I'm a worker. I have no problem getting up in the morning and going to work, and I'm consistent as hell. I don't think there's anybody on this earth more consistent than me. I'm consistent in everything that I do. So God gives us the ability to either fold or prevail, period. And so you get up every single morning and you do everything you can in your power to become creative, to think outside the box, and to do what you in your willing and able abilities can do. And at that time, it was, okay, let's start bidding bigger commercial jobs. And I was down at the bidding rooms. Productive, not productive, I don't know. I was literally bidding projects 24 hours around the clock. I would go in, I'd get plans on stuff we'd never had bid before. And I was just like, screw it. I mean, what do I got to lose? I'm not going to get the project. I don't have it now anyways. So I bid things all night long on commercial projects. During the day, I was going in with flyers, and I handed out flyers, and I was going to these new home subdivisions, and I was literally handing them out door to door to door to door to door, just to pour concrete for residential stuff, and just waiting for phone calls to come in, calling Angie's List and all these lead providers, and just trying to structure things where I had an upper hand on anything that did come in. We got so taking advantage of every single call that came in. Home Advisor was called Service Magic at the time. I was the first contractor in New Mexico that was on Service Magic, and it was like a test platform. They wanted to take my credit card and just charge me for these leads. It was totally taboo. It's not, because technology has evolved. But in 2008, lead providers was like, it was still obsolete at the time, right? It wasn't something that anybody was really using. So I took a risk on it, and I gave them my credit card. I started getting a little bit of leads that came in through it, because they were doing online marketing to acquire leads, and that's where like really a lot of online marketing stuff started to start to be rekindled. The yellow pages were starting to die at that time, and so like I told the girls in the office, I said, okay, if those phones ring, you set up an appointment with these people. And I told my sales guys, and I went back and I put on my my sales hat again. I told my wife, okay, this is 1998 all over again. We're gonna build this like if it was a brand new business again. And it was a hard time for me mentally, because my son, we had waited to have kids until we were financially set up. And the way we were going to raise them was I wasn't going to work full time. I was just going to work part time. I built a strong business. We were doing really well. We were worth, at that time, probably someplace right around $20 million. You know, so we had done well. And so I'm sitting back in this recession going, and now my son's born, and I'm sitting back going, holy shit, I had to go back to work harder than I ever had before, right? And I'm wearing every hat. And so you go in, you do all this stuff, and when the phones would ring, I tell the girls, you guys give those calls, and if they're calling, it's because they have some type of money. We don't know what that money is. We don't know if it's $1,000, $10,000, or $100,000. But if that phone rings, we're going to find out how much money they have, and we're going to maximize the value of whatever we give them to take every friggin' dollar from that customer that we can. Every friggin' dollar, every dollar we can, we're taking from them. But we're gonna make it worth it, right? Yeah. Because they have a certain dollar amount. We don't know what it is. So all I did is I bid projects, rebid them, and we were functioning on over an 80% close rate. If they had money, we took it, and we got the job, because we paid attention to our customers at that time. That's the one thing that was one of the biggest things that made the biggest needle mover for us, is that I was willing to get back in there and just put in the time and effort that it took, and to pay attention to clients, their needs, and what their wants were, and then maximize the value for them, so I could take that profit. Because if I took that profit, I knew I had profit, right? I knew I was making money. It was smaller on percentage basis, but it was still profit, right? But we kept these guys going, and then we changed. We acclimated in the housing world. Our houses were selling, but they were selling slow. We modified our business model a little bit, and I met this guy named Bob. And Bob told me, hey, Jerome, let's buy some retail buildings. This is a perfect time to buy. He said, the market's jacked up. He said, I'll find them. You renovate them. We'll split them 50-50. And I said, okay. So I said, sounds good. So Bob was finding these buildings that were like 40 cents a square foot, like crazy numbers, dude, just crazy numbers. And we were buying them like on owner finance deals. My crews would go in, we'd demo them, we'd renovate them, and we'd get in. And I learned something from Bob, and this helped me on my single family homes. Bob told me, he goes, I remember coming, he goes, hey, Jerome, go down and pick out some flooring, some wood floors. Let's put some nice floors in this. And I was already apprehensive. I was like, we're gonna put nice wood floors in these retail buildings? And he goes, just trust me. He goes, pick out the floors. And this was after we were doing we were redoing the stucco on the outside and the drywall on the inside. And he goes, did you insulate? And I said, no, we're just gonna, it's gonna look good. And he goes, no. He goes, I want the best insulation. He goes, I want this thing insulated completely, all the way around, completely insulated. The roof, when we redo the roof, I want the foam up there, I want it fully insulated. I said, Bob, we don't need to do that, it's a waste of money. He goes, trust me, Jerome, trust me. And Bob is about 25 years my senior. And so, and he just ran in his own little world. And Bob owned a bunch of retail and a bunch of office buildings. And he was literally like 4 offices down from me on Route 66 on 4th Street in Albuquerque. And we were both building and redeveloping in the same area. And this is where I thought Bob was a lunatic. I came in with these wood floors, real wood floors. They were like $2.50 a square foot, which I felt like was a lot of money at the time for an office building. And I brought it to him, and I dropped it. He goes, "Oh, just drop it at my office." So on my way home, I dropped it at his office. And the next day, Tammy, my assistant, she goes, "Bob dropped by some flooring samples for you. He told me for you to pick from one of those 3 samples." And so I looked at them, I turned them over. One's like $6.50 a square foot. Another one's like $5.95 a square foot. And I go, what the fuck? I go, what is Bob thinking, man? We can't put $6 a square foot hardwood floors in here.
That's during the recession too.
This is during the recession.
Yeah.
And I go, and so I called Bob. I said, bro, we can't put this in there, man. Like that shit that I got is good, man. He goes, Jerome, he goes, trust me, pick one of those 3. And so we're bickering back and forth on the phone to each other, and he goes, trust me, Jerome. And Bob's one of those guys, old school guys, so he's just good. He doesn't argue. He's like, when he just does, like, all right, we'll see you, man. Pick one of those floors, we'll see you tomorrow, right? And he just like leaves.
Yeah.
So then I go, fuck. So I was like, okay. So I pick one of these floors, right? And I'm like, all right, Bob, I'm gonna pick one of your crazy ass floors. This shit better sell. So everything was 100% to the highest quality.
Wow.
And the first building that we did was this little tiny building. It was like 2,500 square feet, and he sold it in less than 2 weeks. And I said, okay, wow, okay, cool. Each made 50 grand, not bad. It only took me this was like now December, January 2009, rolling into 2010. So almost 12 months later, that Bob and I start doing this. I was like, shit. And so he goes, Jerome, never compromise quality. If you have quality, I can go in and tell investors, hey, I have the best building for you. It's the best buy out there. You don't have to do anything to it for 15 years. It's insulated well, has brand new heating and cooling, the best flooring, the best walls. He goes, as an investor, it's seamless. You just come in, you buy it, rent it, and forget about it. And that was his philosophy. And so his investor pool knew that about him. So all he did is made phone calls to contacts that he's had for over his 30-year career as an investor. And because of the quality that he put behind everything, it sold, even during the recession. Because it didn't come down to the price. What it came down is to the value. Okay, because there's prices, right? And what is price? Like price is what anybody's willing to pay for something,
subjective,
right? Yeah. And it's subjective to the value. You can get what you want out of something if you give somebody the value that they want. It's the same thing that I did with our concrete company, but I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. And so when we started doing this, I took this concept back to my single family homes. And so where most people go to Home Depot and start buying like Glacier Bay and like American Standard, but the cheapest end of this stuff, and they put the bare bone cheapest shit. I remember going, and because I was a broker, I had my Supra key where I could go into any house. So all my competitors, as a real estate broker, I can go see what they were doing. All of them garbage. Everything got cut down. They cut down the quality of their light fixtures. They cut down the quality of everything. And because I was working with Bob, I think it was like a godsend. I just went in and I started putting an extra $10,000 in trim out items in my houses. Reduced the prices a little bit because we had to, but we went from making about $110,000 per house down to about $84,000 to $85,000 per house. We were making between $83,000 and $85,000 almost perfectly for about 1 year. And then we pushed back up to that $110,000 mark of net profit on every single home. And it was all through 100% the value of the quality of what we were doing. And I learned that from Bob. You know, Bob's still around. He still, we still talk regularly, and I respect him highly. That was one of the best mentor lessons, without even knowing that I was getting mentored, that I had, especially out of the 2008 recession. Restaurants do it. You know, when recessions hit, Applebee's was a good example. My wife loves fresh vegetables because she's a vegetarian, and Applebee's used to serve fresh vegetables. In the 2008 recession, they went to frozen vegetables, and we never ate at Applebee's ever again.
Wow.
And restaurants will do that, and they'll cut their menu items to save on cost. When there's a recession, it's when you give the highest and best quality, because sophisticated buyers will pay for what they want if they see the value, but they won't if you give them garbage. And that's why businesses went out of business in the 2008 recession. That's why we were able to thrive coming out of it. But 90% of how we made it through was faith, because I did all that, and there was days that I didn't think we were gonna get through it. And every day in the morning I wake up, I just make the sign of the cross before I go downstairs, and I say, God, just give me the ability today to be the best Jerome can be, to make the day the best and most productive day. And then I had to put it in God's hands. And all of this came about not by me. It was little blessings that I was part of, because I stayed active. And if people aren't functioning on faith, they lose.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I always say, it's funny, you said a quote that I say a lot, always do your best and try to live your word by God.
Yeah.
That's how I think everyone should try to be every day. But that's a great point in terms of quality and playing the long-term game, because you can see that with clothes, for example. You buy a t-shirt and the quality is bad.
Yeah.
You'll never buy that t-shirt again.
Yeah.
But then you go and buy, X or Y product, but then the product is good.
Yeah.
That's a great. I'm gonna keep that in mind for future stuff, actually. But one thing I wanted to ask you, which I've noticed just kind of based on the story so far, is you have discipline, consistency, and drive. Where does that come from?
I think a lot of it comes from wrestling, but it also comes from home as well, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest demises to our society today is, and I said this when I recognized this greatly when we had our Subway stores, is that the problem with the world today is we have stupid parents raising stupid kids. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean it in all truth. We have a generation that allowed a generation where there's a parent, there are people that are parents now that were raised in a generation where it allowed them to be able to go in and make things okay that aren't okay. And now they have kids and they're raising them that way. And it's the demise of society, because it's that instant gratification and expectations that people have, that they are owed something without being given to them. My parents didn't raise us like that. My parents to this day, they don't care about how much money we've made. They don't care about any of that stuff. My parents today, like you go home, my parents don't care about any of that stuff. They want to know what kind of person you are. Am I a good dad? They expect this out of me. They expected me to do good. So I didn't come from a family that was real affectionate, not a lot of pats on the backs, very few, if any, like, hey, good job, we're proud of you. We didn't get that in our family. And I'm not telling you that's the right way to do it. I overpraise my kids because I think it's healthy to make sure that they know that they got our support, especially because I didn't have that. But my parents were raised old school, and my dad didn't have a father that gave an example to him. My mom's came from a family of 11, and her dad died when she was 5 years old, So my grandmas had to raise our parents to survive, and they both, my dad was on his own at 15 years old, and my mom, at 18, was gone. She gave him enough money to get a bus ride into town, and because they lived in a mountain rural area, and they had to get a job, and they packed a bag and they left. There was no college, no nothing. You just go figure it out, and they raised us with that type of discipline.
So let me ask you a quick question. And it's been kind of trending on social media, real estate, man. And you clearly are an expert in real estate, but you see, now's the time to buy real estate. Now it's not the time to buy real estate, or we're going to enter a recession. Like, what's the truth? What's going on?
Yeah, it's always the time to buy real estate. It's just how you buy is different at different times. There should never be a time. If I look back historically from 1998 to today, there's never been a year that I haven't bought real estate. I've bought real estate consistently over the last 26 years. There's never been a year I stopped buying real estate. I've consistently purchased every single year. It's just what I purchased and how I purchased is changed over the course of time, depending on the economics, right? 2 years ago, Ground up construction, for me, is 100% where it's at, because everything was being oversold. I've been talking about this since 2018. I said, a market reset correction has to come. I knew this. I could see the writing on the wall in 2017 when I bought my apartment complex at an 8 cap, and by 2017, a year later, it was at a 7 cap, and then it went to a 6 cap in 2018. I was like, shit, this stuff's over. People are overpaying for it. It can't keep going. And so I said, screw it. I'm going to build my own apartment complexes, because then I can build them at like a 15 cap, and I just take the upside on them. But now, today, because of the compression, it's tough to get construction loans. Now, we have a business to run, so we're still building, but we're building them for free right now. We're not making no money on them. Our investors get paid first, we get paid second. We can't even stabilize them if we take a development fee, if we take an asset management fee, any of that stuff. But we're still building them, because in 5 years from now, we're gonna have a heyday with that stuff. But where the value is right now is pre-existing assets, because the values on pre-existing assets, where they were once worth, let's say you take a $10 million building, is now worth today close to about 10 or 11 million, almost about half the price, just because of interest rates rising and cap rates going up. So what we're buying now is more value out assets, or we're buying properties to strategically reposition them. So we're buying more financially distressed assets now, not physically distressed, just financially distressed.
So let me ask you a question. So let's go in a scenario. Let's say I'm 18 years old.
Yeah.
I'm hustling, I'm saving up. I know I want to get into real estate. I don't know how. How do I get into real estate? What's the first step to get into real estate?
Just buy something. I always tell people the number one thing you should be doing before you buy real estate is learn how to underwrite real estate. How to underwrite cap rates, how to underwrite the value of real estate. They can find all that content on my YouTube channel. We have tons of it. But for every young adult out there that's 18 years old trying to get into real estate, or anybody that's brand new, they should all learn how to underwrite it. But they should just buy something. And I just tell people, a win's a win. And what we used to train even in multi-level marketing is my mentor said, Jerome, get people a check. It doesn't matter if it's a $300 check in their first month or an $800 check. They don't need to make millions of dollars. No one's going to get rich quick overnight, right? He said, you'd be surprised what $300 does for somebody. Because if it's $300 that comes from a source of income that they weren't expecting it from, it's exciting for them. So a win's a win. And so in real estate, I tell people, it doesn't matter. Just because I build homes doesn't mean you have to build homes. It's the most profitable, most lucrative way that we have active income. But you can go do a fix and flip, or you can just buy a rental house, stabilize it, rent it, and make an extra $1,000 a month. That's a win, you know? And so I tell people there's so much stuff, so much distractions on the internet. Don't get confused by all the distractions. Just keep it simple. My first couple projects were single family residential rental homes. I kept them each for about 1.5 years. I hated them, and I learned that right away. I was like, screw the single family game, because I was doing little retail buildings. I was like, damn, these people don't bother. Yeah. I make more money. I said, I renovate them. I said, these people stay for a long time. I don't have to deal with the riffraff and all the lies and bullshit that you have to deal with the single family. And so I got rid of the single family ones, and I got into commercial, and I stayed in commercial. The only thing I stayed in residential was for active income, to build them and sell them. Build them and sell them, make big profits, and then walk away from them. And that was it. And so I just tell people, it doesn't matter if it's a commercial building, doesn't matter if it's a house, doesn't matter if it's a fix and flip, doesn't even matter if it's Airbnb. When you get the experience of like putting paint on the walls, fixing a kitchen that's jacked up, remodeling a bathroom, putting new flooring down, dealing with the trade labor and the experience, just dealing with that stuff is worth its weight in gold, because you're going to utilize that experience no matter what you do as you grow. But it's the experience, and most people aren't willing to put in the time nowadays to get that experience. They want it overnight because of what they see on social media. They have to be willing to put in the time, right? Because when you get that experience, you keep that. What people don't realize is when you get experience, you keep that for life, man. Like, that's yours, you own it. That's your experience. You know, it belongs to nobody else. So yeah, you might have only made $1,000 a month. It may not be a lot of money, but the experience that you gain from that is worth millions of dollars in the future. So it's not the money that you make monetary, it's the experience that you gain that you're going to utilize down the road. That's where the real value comes from. So throughout the trajectory of where you are now, by the way, impressive stuff, man. I feel like I'm in a boot camp right now for real estate, so I appreciate that. You mentioned God a lot, which I think is great, and I want to touch base on that. How important has God been throughout the trajectory of your whole life, including your family and all that? Oh, it's everything. When we were kids, I mean, growing up, that was the best attribute of going through Catholic school. And my mom just raised us like that. You know, we were active, rambunctious kids. We grew up like wild dogs in the, you know, because we sun goes up, parents kick us out, sun goes down, you know, you come back, you know, and anywhere in between there, you don't get, God, they don't even know where the hell you are. I mean, we're gallivanting all over the place, right? Yeah. And we grew up lucky in a lot of land and cornfields and stuff like that, so we couldn't get in too much trouble. But the trouble we could get in, believe you me, we got in it, right? But it didn't matter what trouble we got in. Didn't matter if we were out at a party in high school on a Saturday night. Didn't matter if we were out till 2 o'clock in the morning, 3. It didn't matter. 10 o'clock in the morning every Sunday we were at church. When we were kids with our BMX bikes, we throw them upside down. The priest knew us, and even to this day the priest sees me with my kids now. But I was just a little kid, and me and all my cousins, we'd roll into church with our BMX bikes. We'd throw them upside down. We'd put them upside down inside the church, and we'd go sit in the pews. When we started getting into skateboarding and stuff, like in middle school, we'd come with our skateboards. We'd put our skateboards up against the same wall that we put our BMX bikes up. And at 10 o'clock on Sunday, every single Sunday, we were there. And my mom and her sisters, we all kind of lived pretty close to each other, not too close, but kind of close enough to ride bikes too, right? And that was my mom's thing. Say, look, man, God gives to you all the time, and if you can't give 1 hour a week to God, then you're doing things wrong. He said, you can sacrifice 1 hour of your time. He goes, and my mom didn't care if we paid attention or not. It was more about just giving that time back to God and mentally putting us in a position where it was almost like a sacrifice at the time when you're a kid, because as a kid, sometimes you just don't get it, right? You think it's like, oh, Mom, like, why do I have to be at church? Like, this is stupid. You know, I don't even know what the priest is saying anyways, right? Yeah. But there was something about that discipline that they gave us that I always remembered. So even when I was in multi-level marketing, I was traveling all over the country, it didn't matter where I was at. I could go in, and we didn't have smartphones, but I could get a Yellow Pages and open up the phone book in those days and just look for Catholic churches and find one right by me. And I could see how far they were on a map, because we actually used to use real paper maps back then.
That's crazy, man.
You know, isn't it crazy? I used to drive around with real maps, and you had to read them. And I go to church every single Sunday. You know, Rick sits there and he remembers, man, when I was back over in San Antonio and we were opening up offices, and these guys would be out at the lake, and I'd go to church on a Sunday, and I won't go to the lake till after I go to church. And my whole thing was just trying to do what was right, in spite of all my shortcomings and me being a little jacked up top as a person, just because we're just wild rambunctious kids. You know, none of us are perfect. You're not perfect, bro. I'm not perfect, man. You know, I try to be the best person I can be. But that little bit that my mom gave us in that regards has paid its dividends tenfold, hundredfold, thousandfold. And I think that people go through so many struggles because they just have no faith. You know, they have no faith. And you know, and there's a in Matthew chapter 17, it says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. Yeah. And if you've ever seen a mustard seed, you know it's about as big as a pinhead. It's really tiny, meaning you can't have faith and doubt at the same time. And so if you have any faith at all, that means you have zero doubt. And when you have zero doubt, you can do anything. And so what the Bible's telling us in the book of Matthew is that when you have faith, you have everything. You can do anything. So your mind can't have faith and doubt in the same time. So if you function on faith, you as an individual, God made us perfect, man. You can do anything.
I agree. One of my favorite quotes is, if you fear God, you don't fear anyone. If you don't fear God, you can fear anyone.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, because God's not to be feared, you know. He's not. We don't have an evil God, I don't believe. But, you know, I believe we put ourselves in our own compromising positions. And
I agree.
You know, we kind of call our shots, and we put ourselves where we are currently at in our lives. We've put ourselves there.
I agree 100%. So what's the trajectory and plan like 10, 15 years from now with what you want to do?
Yeah, I'm sustaining for my kids right now. So I don't know if 10, 15 years from now, I know people do these long, big term, I'm 50 years old, man. Look, man.
You look great, man, by the way.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. You know, my life's halfway over, man. You know, my goals are totally different today than what they were in my 20s. I know that a lot of people have these big money goals. I want a good life, bro. I mean, I could sit here and tell you I want to hit billionaire status and all this stuff. I don't care about that. We'll get there just through the organic process of what we're doing. For me right now, my biggest goal right now is making sure I fulfill my wife's only ask. And so that's my biggest immediate goal. We've worked so hard. My wife goes, okay, when do we get to enjoy all of this? You know, because through the life of entrepreneurship, all the ups and downs, you live it, eat it, and breathe it forever if you're in the game. you know.
Yeah.
And she, my wife's felt it. She's been with me for 25 plus years, and she goes, look, when the kids go to college, I just don't want to be tied down to any of our businesses. I want to be mobile. She goes, I want to be at a place where we can pick up and go. If one of my babies calls me and they say and they go, hey, Mama, I need you, that we can drop what we're doing, get on a flight, and we can be there. I just want to be in that position. She goes, we've worked so hard. I don't think that that's too much to ask for. And I said, not at all. And so right now, my goal is like the concrete company and those companies that we have employees that we're tied down with, is work. I'm working to shed those off, but it's hard to replace those incomes when they're doing millions of dollars a year, right? So this little run that I've had since 2018 has been an aggressive run, a real ambitious run that I didn't think I was going to make in my 40s, but God has different plans, and so we're making this run. I told my wife, I told her, look, I was about 43 years old, and I told her, I think I got one more good run in me. I told her, and I said, I want to make a good run. I feel like stagnant after that 2008 recession. And she supported me. She goes, yeah. She knew we didn't need to do it. We were financially well, but she's good. She supported me. It was a crazy goal. All this shit with social media and everything that we're doing. I wasn't bargaining for any of it, and it's supposed to be a lot more challenging than I had anticipated it. But it's doing well. I've actually enjoyed the process. I've learned a lot. And it just teaches me that no matter what age you're at, just continue growing and learning, right? Yeah. So that's the monetary goal, is shedding that off to make my wife happy, just to make sure that we're 100% mobile in the next 2 years when my son goes to college, and the next 5 years when my daughter goes to college. And then after that, really it's just sustainability to give my kids the opportunity to do what we do if they choose to do that. If they choose otherwise, we'll probably sell the portfolio off to like a big REIT or something. Or not, or we'll run it as long as we want to run it. But in the time being, I'm just going to sustain, because I feel like everything that I built, if I let it go, I do my kids a disservice, and it was a waste of time. So I'm going to give my kids an opportunity that if they decide they want to do what we're doing, I want to sustain what we're doing and continue building it so that they can run it if they want to, because life's already hard enough. I figure let's give them a run at it and we raise our kids with athletics and sports. So they're disciplined, my kids. So we'll see what God has in mind for them and in the direction they take in life. We give them an open door to go pursue their dreams. The support and stuff that we didn't get as kids, I've given to them. And so I want them to know that they have all my support to do all their crazy dreams that nobody would normally support. I support them.
Beautiful.
Inevitably.
I know you're mentioning the trajectory of your life pretty much have ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
And then your wife has stuck through that.
Yeah.
How important, and I think it's a really important question for a lot of young men to understand, how important it is to find the right partner in your life.
Yeah, so Rick and I have talked about this quite a bit of times actually. We, sometimes you don't even know you have the right partner. I think a lot of us are numb to it, in all honesty. Yeah, and I think entrepreneurs specifically, and I'll tell you the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make, with women, women, not knowing what women, because I'm not a woman, but I'll tell you from a man's perspective, right? So I think the biggest mistake that the male entrepreneur makes with wives is that they want them to think like them. They want them to act like them. Wow. They want them to be an entrepreneur. They want them to live, eat, and breathe entrepreneurship. My wife doesn't give a shit about being self-employed. My wife don't give a shit about the businesses. My wife could care less about the money. My wife doesn't care about that stuff. What my wife cares about is she cares about those kids. She cares about our household. And all that comes first. Even before me, it comes first. That stuff's important to them. What is that household like? And there's been times that I've tried to force that on my wife. When we opened up a dance school for us, okay, we can get this thing making $150,000 a year. This is how we do it. This is what we're going to do. And then I got it there for her. And then 120, 100, 90, 80, 50, and it was down to like $35,000 a year. And when I was on her back and I was over her shoulders, she was miserable. And our relationship was miserable. So it finally got to, I was like, I own the building, it's paying for itself, I'm making money, $35,000 a year. She's friggin' happy. She's not bothering. She doesn't ask for any money. She's content. Let her be. Let her friggin' be. She's not gonna be me. God didn't make her me. God made me. Why are you trying to make a woman you, right? So just let her be. I just let her be. Then when we had our Subway stores, she was complaining because she isn't involved in the businesses. But she's not involved in the business because she never wanted to be involved in the businesses. But then at some point in time, when you have a wife that doesn't work full time but is college educated, gave value in their professional career, gave up their professional career to raise kids, they feel displaced as a wife. And as a man, you have to know that they just sacrifice their professional well-being, everything that they want to do in life for you and your kids. And at certain points in times, when push comes to shove and they're getting disrespected by you and your kids, they feel demised. And when they feel demised, their value goes down, they're miserable. And so there's times that they feel like that, and you have to recognize it as a husband. And so she wanted to feel self-value, and her way of thinking she wanted to feel self-value was being a part of the businesses. So I let her run the Subway stores. All of a sudden, 941 taxes aren't getting paid, checks are bouncing. We have sales are going down. It's a friggin' mess. I mean, so much so I was so stressed out with my CPA, and we were bickering and fighting about this in the house. And it was because, and it wasn't that I was fighting with her, I'd question her. I'd go home and say, hey, did this get paid? Or did that get paid? The house was friggin' miserable, because I was walking on eggshells. She felt like she was walking on eggshells. And then I sat one day and I said, okay. I was like, is this really gonna make or break us? Like, I'm gonna allow this to break us? Like, we have a family, a great family. I'm gonna let a fucking Subway store break our relationship, right?
Yeah.
It sounds stupid when you say it, but it's the reality of it, right?
Yeah,
And this
absolutely.
is entrepreneurship. And so I finally said, you know what, screw it. It's not worth my family, it's not worth my wife, it's not worth any of it. I just paid the taxes, the penalties, all the bullshit. I cleaned it up, took it away from her, and I said, because then now the tables turned. At first it was she wanted to be a part of it, then it was like, why can't I just be a good mom? Why do I have to be involved in the business? It's like, you don't have to give it back, right?
Yeah.
And so I take it back and I just let her be a mom.
So how do you, just adding on to what you're saying, how do you balance that though? Husband, fatherhood, entrepreneur, seems like you have so much going on.
Yeah, you just have
Is there
to
such thing as a balance or?
Yeah, there is. There is such thing as a balance. And the balance comes from awareness. Okay. And you got to be aware, man. Like, you got to put perspective on anything, on what's really important to you in life. And if money and business is all that's important to you in life, you probably should never get married, and you probably should never have kids. My mom taught me, we were hit and beat when we were kids because that's just the way we were raised, man. You misbehave, you get a boot in the ass, right?
Yeah.
And my mom told us, she goes, we probably hit you guys a little too much. And she goes, don't hit your kids and just love them. They didn't ask to be here, you brought them here, And so remember that when you have kids, like, they didn't ask to be here, you brought them here, The life you give them now is the life they deserve, and that's 100% of you. I'm not a perfect dad. I still make mistakes. They're sacrificed right now. They're down at the Galleria and shopping and stuff. They're waiting for me. We're going down to Mexico. We got a great vacation coming for the next week. So there's a little give and take, obviously. But the kids and the family, for me, is first, and it all functions around faith. And there's times that all of us are out of balance, including me. I'm not the best dad. I'm not the best father. I'm not the best husband by any stretch of the imagination. But I try to be. I try to become aware when I know I'm out of balance, right? And when it's time to turn it off, sometimes it's time to turn it off. I'm bad at turning it off. But when I see my wife and she looking at you, they look at you a certain way, you recognize it. And you just gotta say, okay, I'm pushing it, right? I'm pushing it.
Yeah. Okay,
the whole family is gonna become awry if I don't get it together, right? So then it's you trying to figure out, okay, how do you get it together? How do you shave some stuff off? How do you make them a priority? And sometimes it's as easy as leaving the house with no phones to go to dinner with your family. And there's sometimes when I'm disconnected, I'm just like, fuck, man, I know there's important stuff, but what's that important that if I can't step away from my phone for the next 2.5 friggin' hours, what have I built? I haven't built anything. So I'll literally do that. I'll leave them in the bathroom. I'll get ready, I'll shower up, we'll go to dinner. I'll just leave both my phones there, and I just go to dinner.
Beautiful.
We just go, just little things like that where you're attentive and you force yourself to be attentive because it's just a couple hours. Usually what it takes, the make or break, is just that much time, that much difference. Your kids don't need a lot of your attention, nor do they need it or want it, especially as they get older. But the time that you give them, just give them that time that they need, with no distractions.
That's what Reyes says. He said kids spell love T-I-M-E, time.
Yeah.
100% true. I know we're a little short on time now, but to kind of close it out, for anyone watching, any young entrepreneur, anyone that wants to be successful, they're hungry, they're driven, that have that drive, that work ethic, what would you kind of encourage them to really put in and embed it into themselves?
Yeah, redundancy, mentorship is important, man. Don't discredit information. I lived in an age where my mentorship came through a lot of audio cassette tapes and a little tape player. And I mean, I didn't listen to the radio, man. I didn't for years. We were raised in a jacked up education system that the Rockefellers put together to teach us how to be good employees. And I always tell people, you're fighting 13,000 hours of an education that doesn't spell free enterprise. We're Americans, man. The best entrepreneurs are immigrants
100%.
because they come to our country to make money. We're the land of the free, the home of the brave, man. Like, this is the land of opportunity. And we're born in a system that teaches us otherwise, right here. And so other immigrants come in here and they don't get distracted by it because they didn't have the same jacked up education system we have. So I tell people, because of that jacked up education system that we had, they need to go double down on what they're putting in their brain, because the more good information that they put in their brain about entrepreneurship, their specific goal and task that they're moving towards, those are going to be a depiction of where they actually go. But they're going to have to inundate themselves. And for me, it was night and day, man. Like, I lived it, ate it, and breathed it. I didn't listen to the radio. I didn't watch TV. I didn't do it for 5 years, you know. And when I first met my wife, she goes, "Remember when you just had channel 13 and it was all fuzzy?" And I said, "Yeah." I go, "I didn't watch TV." And she goes, "So first time I got cable was when she moved in with me, you know." Yeah. And but I didn't care about it. I go, "I don't need TV." I go, "I don't need that thing." I go, "I got everything I need right here on this little tape player." And I'd fall asleep listening to that, because your subconscious mind is the most vulnerable state of mind you have. Yep. So what you go to bed with and what you wake up with is what's the most important. And when you listen and inundate yourself with good information and what you're doing, that for a young person is invaluable.
I love it, man. The American dream's not dead, brother.
Nope.
I love it.
Thanks,
Thank you for coming in, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next one.